$4,000 raise every year.
Yeah, I'm saying just with the 5%.
So just
Not adding sheriff's request.
version one, that does not include the sheriff's department request?
Correct.
Christine has for, Cheryl has for, 1/3, one top.
You're gonna have to come up with some fancy accounting tricks, aren't you?
Without the sheriff's
Yeah,
request,
it's called no.
5%, we're already 285,000.
Yeah.
In the ditch.
So we got a lot of discussion to do.
Well, that tax rate is figured on our expected revenue. I noticed it's down about $10.
Well, it's the new evaluations. We're talking about, but I still don't see the deal where we have the possible money from the new construction, which may not be in them.
Yeah, it's not in those numbers, but Jennifer said it's gonna be somewhere around where it was last year, 330.
That might be our savings grace right there, exactly. We don't have that. I didn't have that.
One time, we went to years ago, there were 6
It's frozen.
She's saying rough number, maybe that's $300,000 actual dollars in our pocket on hospital.
So this is the total.
We don't know that.
Yeah, we.
So that'll get us back closer to doing that. We're still trying to make a decision on how we're gonna do it. But with that.
Well, we do to a certain extent.
Yeah, a certain extent, that's not good enough.
Well, let me find it. Taxable value.
They want you to build a budget and then make a tax rate from there. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
what I was
back to
wondering.
the you know what you got to work with for your budget. But anyway, that extra to make that from the new construction may get us back toward you're right there.
Be careful now. Well. What's in there?
I just want to knock everybody's hip down on taxes.
Oh, I know, she got,
You heard that. That's anywhere too windy. They're saying that they're gonna help the schools out and help lower property taxes on the school on that side. But you know, what they were saying,
Who's that? They say,
The state legislature,
yeah.
that's their intention, because they have a.
$27 billion.
They're wanting to be able to lower the school property tax.
Surplus.
Good.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
But that's the same group that also threw it under the bus and gave us a cap when we're with that much problem. The school should be supposed to be. Back that put in the problem. I'll probably help 100% trust Austin. We go to locals in charge.
The Republicans like Liz Cheney,
Cheryl didn't have any numbers in her.
I think those three officers all ought to get together and have a uniform request. Because they're on some similar type of, in my opinion. And they're the three. You do something for one of them, the other right on your back. It's like, you go hard, you know.
And so the request for them to keep that temporary position in the district attorney's office. That's not in here either. Is it?
That's funded out of ARPA funds.
Well,
Yeah, it's
If we
in
kept
the,
that position,
yeah,
we would still fund it out of ARPA.
is this in your budget, right, Jennifer? Is the
It
budget,
wouldn't be in our budget.
and your salaries for the DA's office, that position though is included in here, right?
No,
Yeah,
shouldn't be.
well, it should be in the budget, but then there should be a line item where it, for revenue.
Well,
I'm not sure how Josie ended up doing that.
it could be like you said, but it could be that
It's somewhere else.
is somewhere else. Yeah, it went straight to the ARPA funds instead of through the DA's office.
he's right, we approved it for the remaining couple months for 1 year and then the next year, and then it said that's what we decided on the next.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was,
I'm trying to go from memory.
This,
I think it was for the remainder of last year through this budget year. So it'll run out next September. Is that right?
yes, it'll run out in September 31 or whatever it is. 30th.
I'm just curious, has there ever been a time when somebody came in here and asked for a position to be paid for with a grant? That at the end, when the grant ran out, we cut the position, or do we just always keep it?
That's been a bad thing. At the sheriff's department, a lot of times, that's what they had like an environmental officer for a little while, and then it's a little declining. Every year it's less, which means you gotta pick up more of it.
Yeah. But we've always kept them every single time somebody comes in here and does, it's not gonna cost you anything, it's a grant funding, but we always keep
I'm
them.
sure now we're gun shy of those deals.
You know, I'm starting to act like Joe.
Now, COG did pay for environmental officer, and then we did do away with it. But I think Vance has come back with an environmental officer that is half and half.
Yeah.
She works environmental stuff and then work.
Yeah, but when we had that environmental officer, when the grant ran out, we just made him a regular deputy and kept him.
Yeah,
Well, probably,
and that,
but he had a deputy opening. It wasn't an added position.
but the COG was unhappy about that, because they were supposed to continue that position. That's the reason they reinstated it. So that was part of the agreement originally, like they were supposed to keep that position, and it became more county funded every year, so it was fully the county, and when it did, it just turned into a regular, instead of keeping it as a environmental, so. We'll go back and fix that. I remember that early on in my.
I know we kept the indigent defense.
Yeah, I was with that. She was saving loads of money. Still is.
Yeah.
As much as it is.
It's hard to quantify that for real, but I think,
Well, you quantify it.
I mean, that's, it's not.
It's hard
We
to
have to
do it,
figure
see if
what
this,
didn't happen here, and what didn't happen here, what didn't happen here, and what is. Child custody cases was a big thing for a little while,
still is.
for all the lawyers, anyone out there, it seems we slowed down, there's things about COVID, maybe really not much happening right now. It's just not getting back into what's happening. Sore spots. Here's.
Ready?
Are you ready? You're ready with it.
It's time now. I don't want to keep everyone waiting.
Are they on the way?
It's all right. I don't want to keep y'all
Are they
waiting.
on the way?
I have not heard from her in a few days. She said she'd come, but maybe
Well,
just
you
leave
know,
her
I know
mind.
what you're gonna request anyway, right?
Well, we got it.
Sorry, I walked all the way upstairs.
We'll let you take a breath.
Thank you.
Yeah, we know
One
how
more
that
minute to
is.
catch your breath in.
I know.
Becky is Bull of Brownwood Library at 600 Carnegie Street. This is our board president, Bill Copeland.
Nice to meet you guys.
What's his name?
Will Copeman?
Valerie, I have the judges. So, we told you in our budget request a lot of what we're facing right now. We've got this old building that needs a roof of 100,000 plus, and a lot of other repairs to our building, and we're just really seeing with inflation and everything that we're just keep having to tighten our belts, and basically have for, I think, as long as the library's been in existence. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for everything you do for this library. I know you do support it. I appreciate those extra funds you gave us last year from ARPA. But we are certainly trying to do more as a nonprofit. We're hoping to launch a Kentucky Derby annual fundraiser event this year in May. So we're certainly embracing our identity as a nonprofit, but we, as always, ask for additional funds just to support our building, our employees, and of course our community, everything we do for them, the reading materials, the computers that, you know, people who don't have computers at home, that's the only way to apply for a job or stay in touch with families, so.
You know, we are, since I came onto the board, I guess, a couple of years ago, I don't know that many people in this county realize that the library is a nonprofit. I think most people would think that it's a city department or a county department and that it gets funding and you don't think about it. So we're working hard to change that. But in the interim, we've got a lot of short-term things that are difficult for us, and not the least of which is our employees. You know, right now they can go get a job at Walmart for almost twice what we pay them. They receive very, very little in the sense of cost of living, wages, increasements or increases or anything like that. Like she said, we've got around $100,000 we're supposed to spend on a roof or need to spend on a roof. We're trying our hardest to pinch where we can, but anything that the county can help us out with is great, greatly appreciated.
You actually own the building, is it? Who actually-
Yes.
We do own the building, yes.
Library owns it, so we get it insured and all.
If we could get some hail, we'd be very grateful.
Yeah, the rest of the county and the country club might not have been real happy about that storm that blew through, but it would have been great for us. Yes.
So did you file a claim on the?
We tried, we didn't really get any, but at one point someone said maybe, so I had someone look at it, but they said no, we didn't get any.
Do you have leaks?
What?
Do you have leaks? Or you just?
Yeah, we've had leaks for years. When I started about 7 years ago, I had someone look at the roof and he said, yeah, this is gonna need to be replaced in about 5 years, so we're trying to figure out how to do that. And we've got other things too going on. It's just an old building. We've got a loan / grant with USDA Community Facilities for about $700,000. Hopefully it won't cost that much, but I don't know if it will happen this year or not.
Well, it's like anything else, you know, when you're dealing with the federal government, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. And then you get up against a deadline and it's kind of just comes down to do they have the funds at that exact deadline. And can we make it happen right then? And if not, then you get to do it all again next year. And unfortunately, that's looking more and more like kind of where we're headed. Like, you know, jump through all these hoops, you get right to the deadline. And oh, by the way, here's a form you need to fill out that you gotta have a CPA to do, and it's gonna take, you know. Yes, sir, the goalpost has been moved a handful of times. And so, you know, we're really going to focus on embracing the nonprofit aspect of the library and working towards that. But, you know, like I said, there's a handful of things that just gotta get done. And in my personal opinion, not the least of which is keeping employees. Because we're losing some already. As we lose them now, we don't have the funds to replace them really, so we try to just ask people to do more. But that's just a death spiral, and eventually you're going to lose employees. So, you know, the roof is something that needs to be taken care of, but, you know, buckets can catch water. Not that we have any water anyways. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that obviously needs to be done, but is not necessarily scary to me personally, as someone who came into this here fairly recently. We have some really good people that work for us. They care greatly about the library. They care greatly about this community. But inflation is roughly 9%. They don't make very much money to begin with. They are certainly disproportionately hurt by it. And so when you can go down, you know, like I said, you can go to Walmart or you can go to, you know, a dozen other places that maybe they would not prefer to work at, but one of these days the choice is going to be taken from them if something doesn't change.
Yeah, I would say you can walk on there and any business around here that's got a couple more signs on the door, it seems like. Most places.
Exactly. And they have a job, and they have a job they love, but the job that they love is not paying them very well right now. And that's on us to help to do more. But, you know, in the short term, again, we're not there yet. We're working on it, and we hope to become a much more prominent charity in this town. 501c3 that people recognize and people understand, hey, this is a place that we should be proud of, and this is a place that the community should come out to and say, hey, you know, there's no reason that Mason, Texas should have a library that is greatly superior to Brown County. You know, our library it's just old at this point. And, you know, and the people is what we have to sell it right now. But we may not have them if we can't help them out a little more.
I have no idea how Mason's is funded. To stand alone, or
They have a lot of donations because of Old Yeller, as silly as that sounds.
Does the city contribute to
They
the
do.
library?
They're our biggest funder, and also the city of Early, so those are our three main funders of Brown County.
What they-
I can get you the exact amount, let me
Well,
check.
that's all right, I
I
don't really need to
think,
know exactly
I could be off, but I'm thinking about 230,000.
between both of them.
Our total annual budget is under $300,000. Their contribution is about 2/3.
what that number?
So our total annual budget is just under $300,000. The city's contribution takes up about 2/3 of that.
I think I gave you a proposed budget, and of course, in all of them, we asked for more funds, so that's not what they actually contribute, but it should get you an idea of what they're contributing.
And so like I said, for a long time, well before Becky got here, and certainly well before I got here, the library has conducted its business as if it were a county or a city department, but it actually is not. And so that's kind of why we.
You know, I never really thought of it as a nonprofit. I always thought it was not a entity. City is something weird.
Right.
I don't really think about it enough.
Well, no, and I think that's normal. My goal is to change that. We'd like it to be a place that people are proud of, that you do think of. You know, hey, there's all this stuff going on downtown, right? It's all around you guys. It's all around the library. We just kind of want to help to be a part of that, help to be a rejuvenating factor in the city.
I think we are one of the largest nonprofit libraries in Texas. I think the other one, some big city on the coast, they've got an endowment set up, and it is unusual. Most are city or county libraries, and trying to operate a library of this size as a nonprofit definitely has its challenges, but we certainly appreciate all the support we get.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was humorous. We had a consultant from the state come in. It's part of the things they do. The library department of the state comes in and they talk about ways to raise money. And they started pointing to, you know, quote unquote, like cities of our size, and they chose Georgetown. And then they chose, no kidding, Bel Air, Texas, which, you know, I grew up in Katy, just outside Houston. You know, Bel Air is not exactly like Brown County, Texas, but it is, I guess, as far as demographics go, the same size. And so they're like, oh yeah, well, their budget is, you know, 2.7 million. It's like, well, yeah, I'm sure it is. You know, we don't need that. But
Really, a lot of public awareness to make it really realize that this is.
I think that's our biggest goal at this point, is to make people understand. But in the short term, again, that's why we're here, just to say, you know, anything that you guys can do would really, really help us. We're not asking for, you know, some sort of permanent lift on our shoulders. We definitely want to work to pull ourselves up. But we have very few opportunities in the short term.
Anyone have any questions for them? Well, we're just here in the West, looking at budget numbers, so
Sure.
we're not in any decision making points yet. But okay.
Thank you
All right,
so
well,
much.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So I see Mr. Stevens is back here.
Yep. And we went ahead and just rescheduled Larry Franks. He's on the afternoon. So that means once Ms. Stevens is done, we don't have to come back after lunch. We've got everybody that was on the schedule. No, look at your, huh?
Sorry, so I couldn't hear what you said about that.
Okay, we're rescheduling Larry for, yeah. or whenever the next time is that we can meet. Seeing that the other two were COVID, it could be a bit.
We could adjourn and, meet again tomorrow if we need to, but after that, we have to look at the agenda and start over, correct? So, we'll figure that out. We'll go, let's hear it. Lisa has to say, we'll take that up.
And since I'm right before lunch, that gives me a reason to hurry and speed up. I hate hearing that word COVID. Because I've got some else to go out. Well, I want to start today by saying thank y'all so much for letting me be here. And as I thought about coming this year, I kind of have a different perspective. I'm like a lot of people the last month, especially the month of July. Every morning I'd go out and look at my yard and I'd have to make some tough decisions. What got to live, what got passed over, hoping that there would be rain and, there hasn't been. And so I kind of feel like that's probably where you as a commissioner's court in Brown County is this year, trying to figure out what gets to live, what gets passed over. And first of all, I want to say I recognize that the county needs to take care of essential services and essential workers. And as a resident of Bangs, I want to thank you for allowing the sheriff's department to cover the city of Bangs a lot in this past year. There are many times that we would not have had any law enforcement if it hadn't been for the SO's office. So there are people and there are programs that are essential that y'all need to know. I'm like everybody else probably that you heard today. I'm coming to talk to you about what you have left over and hoping that there will be some left over to share with Good Samaritan Ministry. So I don't know how much copy-wise y'all have, but I went ahead. I'm a former teacher, so you can take the teacher out of the classroom. You just can't take the classroom out of the teacher. So, Mr. Kelton, I want you to know I'm asking for half as much as I asked last year. So I'm recognizing that times are tough. I am asking for more than you were able to give us last year. Again, hoping that somewhere in that pile of money, there will be something left over. I'm asking this year for $10,000. And this subsidy will be used for our direct aid program. I have given you, the letter explains the numbers, but I want to call your attention first of all to the color-coded page. We have redacted the names, the last names of these clients for confidentiality. But I want you to look at the column that says rent, because this is where we primarily utilized funds that we got from you. And I want you to look at, when you look at rent, I also want you to look across at where that rent money went. You'll recognize the different housing authorities. You'll recognize Brownwood Apartments. If you go to the second page, you may see some names of some folks that you may know who serve as landlords. This money that we use for rent goes back directly to landlords. Not one dime goes into the pocket of a client. Clients are required to pay a portion of their bill so that we can assist them in being part of their solution so that we're not just giving them money. I think one of the problems we're all seeing is that there was so much free money that people came to expect it. And so we expect our clients to help pay their own way. Next thing I'd like you to look at is at our profit and loss statement. If you'll look at the item 10700 that says direct aid, that is the fund where these monies would go. And I want you to see that in that same group of accounts where it says direct aid checking, you'll see that we have a city water assistance fund. We are partners with the city of Brownwood to assist clients with their bills. And again, we don't pay disconnect, reconnect, we don't pay late fees. We expect clients to be part of that. Also, if you look at 1110, we are TXU Energy Partners. That money can only be used for TXU clients. And I wanted to show you this, and I've also included our profit and loss from the last year. These items are shown up on that. On the second page under expenses, where you'll see electric gas assistance, medical, dental, so forth and so on. So the thing that will probably jump out at you is that some of our accounts, like the food account, has several $100,000. I'm sure that y'all deal with grants that can only be spent for certain items. So do we. If a church sends us a donation and it says for food, we are required by law as a nonprofit to only do that for food. And at the core of our values are food and clothing. That's mainly what Good Samaritan helps with. But we do also do this limited financial aid. And we've, in the last 2 months, had to make the same tough decisions that I've had to make about my yard. We've had to say the only clients we can help are City of Brownwood Water and TXU Electric, just because we don't have the funds. So the monies that I'm asking for, and if you can't fund the whole thing, we are grateful for what you have been able to do in the past. That will be used for rent, and it will also be used for birth certificates and IDs. That money, of course, goes back into the Brown County Clerk's office. You can't get a house if you don't have a birth certificate. You can't have a job without some type of ID. And so these things that we help clients with go right back into helping people in Brown County. The folks that you see, the names that have been redacted for the last name on the color-coded spreadsheet, that represents 143 unique households this year. We only help once in a 2-year period, with the exception of TXU. It's their money. They tell us sometimes you can help them once a year. But we prefer to not make people dependent on our aid. There's enough folks that are dependent. And so today, again, I have no preconceived notions. I know that this year is tough. Inflation is hitting your wage packages that you're going to have to offer to county employees. Gas prices have gone up. A lot of organizations blew through their gas budget by the end of July because nobody saw the higher gas prices. So I would just ask today that as you look at what's left over, after you have taken care of the people and services that need to be taken care of, I ask that you please consider helping Good Samaritan provide financial assistance to a few additional households in the coming fiscal year.
Okay, so I'm looking at our budget papers, I don't see the number we actually gave him last.
4,800.
4,800.
That's why I said, see, I didn't ask, just not quite as much.
Page 15,
Do y'all need that?
630492.
Do y'all want
You don't need it.
Oh, I have an extra.
Oh, okay.
That's in 2 different places, so.
It's the one, it's the 630492.
And when you look at our, you can see that we actually expended $18,000 last year in rent. We had a special grant that came from the city of Brownwood that they asked us to administer that had to do with COVID-related work layoffs. And then we also received a $5,000 grant from the Food Bank of West Central Texas. Again, COVID money that was left on the table to help families that could demonstrate COVID-related job layoffs.
Does Does the city, still contribute
No.
48?
No.
Okay.
No, Ms. Crawford called me last year and,
Because it was funded through us, 9,600, we did 48 and they did 48.
but she called me, right about the time of the budget, they started their budget process.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, anything will be well put to use. It flows through us, and I wanted you to see our financial statements because it does not, anything that you give us goes directly to that aid funding. It doesn't sit anywhere else on our balance sheet. It's not used to buy paper clips or paper. It goes directly to the vendors, whether it's a utility vendor, a landlord, or for birth certificates and IDs.
Any questions, please? These are Lisa.
Lisa. My mom's name was Lee, so she wanted to make sure I could never buy a keychain at the drugstore with my name.
Tell me
on it.
about it.
Deanna. So thank y'all, and, we will, in Good Samaritan, we start every day with a prayer. And of course, we're praying and hoping you have some left over, but wouldn't it be nice if there was a grant somewhere that you didn't even know existed that suddenly showed up? We were the beneficiaries of a couple of those last year, so hopefully you'll find it, that pot of gold is in the rainbow. Well, thank y'all, and you get to go to lunch now, that wasn't so bad. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Lisa.
So Valerie, you were talking about we were rescheduling, do we need to reschedule like for tomorrow or what?
Well, that's gonna be the issue. If two of the people that we had scheduled can't come because they have COVID, surely that's gonna be a little bit of time before we can reschedule them.
You want to just wait and do this? Back and forth?
Yeah, because that should give everybody hopefully the time frame to do what they need to do. Yeah. And it'll give us a chance to play with the numbers and do what else we need to do with the versions and whatever that you asked of Josie earlier.
So that being said, what exactly do you want to see in your next round of versions?
Like Sean talked about, we need to get, already, I don't know, if we this year not considered a special request, but they need all kind of be evened out somehow on those. Three off, and that would be, there might need to be, but I don't know that we're able to do that because currently we're already $20,000 but we have not seen our new revenue money, what it's gonna be.
Shane, you're not on the list, sir.
No, I have a question for him. Okay, so the nonprofit that you're on the board for, that I was doing the
Which
taxes
one?
for, yeah, I know, that lost their funding.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we stopped paying their child safety fees. The money that has not been paid out to them, do we keep that for should they ever, or do you think we could reallocate that and use it towards, because the child safety fees are apparently, almost completely.
And I didn't know that until you said that earlier this morning,
Yeah,
that there was a new
I
bill
well,
that
I
they
didn't,
cut
Josie
out.
told me this, well, I missed that
Yeah,
somewhere along
that
the
was
way,
on my
so.
list to look up, so I don't know.
We added that $5 for registration.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't know that they had cut
Can't
that.
we still leave that $5 for registration?
Oh, yeah,
and
you
distribute it?
You still collect it.
Right.
She's just asking the part that was allocated for that particular nonprofit, should she kind of hold that back? Or should she
Can we reallocate?
reallocate it
those
to
who
other
are-
nonprofits?
So why is that not going to that one particular profit?
Well, because it's closed right now.
Overflow.
I don't see, well, can I get back with you on that? Can I answer you next Monday?
Yeah, that's fine. It was just something that popped into my head on, there's
I
gonna be
wouldn't-
extra money out there.
Which nonprofit is it?
Mr. CAC,
What?
CAC, the Advocacy Center in Early.
Children's advocacy.
And so, and I would normally say reallocate it, but I mean, there's obviously a need, and I'm assuming that it's going to be reorganized and opened back up with a new board and new employees. And so it would be nice to to have that.
That's the one where they had to say, like, for the children being interviewed and.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that was, used to have to go all the way down to Vernon.
And it needs to be reopened with a completely new board and a completely new employees and a completely new everything.
But will,
My suggestion would be to just not reallocate it, just hold it.
Yeah, that's kind of off the cuff what I'm thinking. That's an accounting nightmare.
yeah,
Yes,
But the accountants make a lot of money to do that kind of stuff.
I think just create a line to hold it in. If you have to do that, if you have to create a new line item and just hold it and wait until the service comes back
Right.
and not necessarily pay it all to them.
Sure. I think the new county attorney was gonna work on that, opening up that new nonprofit.
She's giving you a big smile over there.
It's a definite need, yeah. Right.
But I wouldn't reallocate it to the others.
okay, so that was just
And,
something else.
and what I was gonna say, and this is just really quick, is that obviously it's a little awkward creating a budget for the county judge's office now, you know, I mean,
Well,
We
he has to keep the budget the same as it was.
yeah, what I was gonna say is maybe more in, maybe kind of a gentleman's agreement or gentlemanal man and woman agreement. And that being, I mean, I want to do some different things. Let me back up by saying, Judge Smith and Judge Moss and I have had some informal discussions and we're gonna formalize the discussions. Because we're gonna do a lot of different things at the courthouse as far as who hears what kind of cases. And so, it's obviously, that court is obviously gonna be much busier starting in January than it has been. And so, I would like to do some different things as far as personnel and moving personnel around. I want the gentleman agreement to be, and this is something I would like to work towards in the future for all departments, and that being, you know, I think the commissioners need to approve budgets for departments, and how they spend that money within their budget is kind of their business. I mean, if Cheryl wants to retitle employees and move salaries around, I mean, I think you should just give her a pot of money and say, well, you hire people and spend it how you want to do it. But that's another battle. I don't want to fight
Well,
that.
I think you need to go through your talk, but not possible deal of having
But
a committee together to talk about.
But what I was gonna say is, I just wanted kind of the agreement to be that rather than me, and I've worked up a budget for the county judge's office. But rather than me presenting that and having y'all approve my budget, and I'm not even in office yet, just the understanding that whatever the total is, when I start in January, I'm not gonna exceed the amount of money you've approved. I may want to move money around within that budget. But the bottom line will be the same. And that I'll be given that opportunity. And then that way, I won't do it now, I'll do it in January, not budget.
But let's go back to the first point I hear. I'm not against that. Back to the other deal about letting them do what they want to. If they're going to create, talk about this last year, salary committee, where they want things to be equitable between different departments. Well, if one does this, does that, maybe one does, we want to move from this department to that department. We got to think about that too. So,
Well, the problem has always been, and I've been sitting here for a lot longer than anybody. And the problem has always been, you have somebody in one department making a salary, and then when they move to another department, they want to take their salary with them. And really, you're supposed to pay, and I used to be a human resources person, salary is determined by the position, not the person that's in it. And so if you're making $48,000 as a secretary in this department, and you apply for a job over there that pays $38,000, you don't get to move over there and take $48,000 with you. If you apply for a job that pays $38,000, then you get $38,000. And that's always been the problem in Brown County, is that you would have people move from department to department and take their salary with them. And then, so you'd have this person makes 48, they move over here to that $38,000 position and they get paid 48, And then next budget cycle, then some other department comes in and says, well, that's not fair, that person's making 48.
See, Larry worked hard on that for years, and we kind of got a system going, but it kind of got something happened here, a little variances here and there, but it's something that'd be nice to have a committee work on that and make sure it's something we can actually afford to do. But bring something to it.
I mean, what Cheryl's talking about is very fair. If you really look at it, it's very fair.
Okay, but
I don't know, but what, and so, and I'm not trying to make her position, her argument hard, but what it is very fair.
That's what I want to try to get those three
Well,
officers get together and make a uniform request.
But that goes back to where if you just let each department, head do what they want, like you said, well, go, they'll go. I mean, so it needs to be some kind of.
No.
It won't,
No,
because
if you have
you're approving a total number. And as long as they stay in that total number, it doesn't really matter.
That's what I've always said
Well,
about the
and-
sheriff's department.
and actually, I mean,
They got
really,
their budget, why they gotta come ask us every time they spend?
Well, that's what I'm just talking about, they may want to pay all the different district, I mean, you might want to keep it even from.
and really, and I'm not beating up on anybody, but you shouldn't at budget time come to the commissioner's court and say, so-and-so is making this, and I want so-and-so to make this. What you should say is you should come in here and go, I've got a position for, in the name of the position, and this position should make this amount of money. Because when you're talking about budgets, you're talking about positions and how much positions make, not individual people. Because when you start playing with individual people's salaries, that's when you
They're
get
talking
everybody
about
pissed
tenure,
off.
she also brought up the word tenure pay, so I mean, there's a lot of different things, so that's where it's like, but it needs to be,
We'll just stay at home.
if you just let each department head do what they want, though, there's gonna be a standard across the board.
There should be.
So you can't just let a department head do what they want in their department, because they'll never have anything.
When I say that, I'm talking about their overall budget. And if I want to move money from travel expenses into office supplies,
Okay, well, I'll see what you're saying there, I thought we started, but I'll take the travel money and get it for their salary.
Just being together.
I don't know if that's what you may say to somebody like Cheryl, you want to raise all your stuff, but you're really, she's not talking about that much money.
No.
I mean, but if you factor in the $2,000 a person cost of living raise, she's only asking for like $7,000. I mean, it wasn't much. But you might say, hey, you know what? Why don't you cut your expenses by $7,000 and we'll give all your employees a $7,000 raise.
We can do that for every office. That's what we're
Well,
doing.
that's where you need to make a salary committee, really look at this overall big picture, so that one of those departments. You always have a-
What
Are you adjourned
Are we gonna adjourn until
the 15th?
Monday the 15th, at 9 a.m.?
Oh,
Is there a motion?
Yeah.
We're adjourned.